Kane Willmott. I am the CEO of IQ Offices. We have locations across Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, Ottawa, and Montreal. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and right now we are in 150 King Street West, which is one of our locations in downtown Toronto. So we're seeing a lot of dynamic change in the market in terms of the way that people are using workspace. I started in office leasing in 1998, a long time ago, and at that time people used an office in a very traditional way. You would have to sign a long-term lease, you would have a certain amount of people, you would try to take on more space in order to accommodate some growth into the future, and that's what workspace looked like. Today we're seeing people use workspace in all kinds of different ways. They are, first of all, taking on, in some instances, a traditional lease, but in many instances what we're seeing from our perspective anyway is that many companies are really gravitating towards flexibility, number one, and number two, a service offering that allows them to focus on their core business and attract and retain the best talent. People are starting to be thoughtful about how they integrate work with their home life, with everything that they have going on outside of work. In addition to that, how are they using space? We're talking specifically about space, how they make their commute to the office or how they make access to workspace as productive as possible to make sure that it's not, I would say today we're not seeing it as just office by default. It's more about purposeful locations, purposeful work. When people are making that commitment in time to go to a workspace, they want to ensure that they're being as productive as possible. So the biggest trend we're seeing now versus pre-COVID is companies that are looking at taking on space for a certain number of core employees that are going to be there every single day or 3 days a week on a very consistent basis and want to have their own desks. And then there's a category of employees or team members that are not coming into the office every day that don't need dedicated space, but they do need to have access to that space when they want to have access to that space, when they need to come in to collaborate, meet with their teams, whatever the case may be. With our spaces, what they're able to do is they're able to accommodate those other groups without having to take on the extra burden of taking on more space for a long term. So they can take on a smaller space. They can look at doing hoteling, which is essentially where they're sharing desks, or someone coming in on Monday, another person coming in on Tuesday, or they can look at having the other people come into the space, set up meetings, use a day office. They're able to really look at a certain core group of individuals that are going to be there all the time, and then accommodating these other groups on an on-demand basis. This is very, very efficient from a financial perspective and very efficient from a space utilization perspective. The most obvious one to me is the office by default, the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I think that is just an antiquated way to use workspace. I think there's so many opportunities now through the use of technology. We're all connected, so there really isn't a reason why people should just show up to the office for the purpose of just showing to the office. It really should be about how am I going to interact with my team when I'm in this workspace. And I think what that leads to is really purposeful work when you're going into a space, and I think you're likely going to see a lot of productivity gains where people are utilizing different workspace environments for different aspects of the job, and workspace is certainly going to be one of them, but there are all kinds of other options as well. At IQ Offices, we focus on locations in the central business districts of the markets that we serve, Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. But we also recognize that many of the companies that occupy space at IQ have needs to support their remote teams that are outside of those central business districts. We chose the central business districts because of access, and it gives the most amount of people access to these spaces. But we also recognize that there are a number of staff members, and this is what we're hearing from our membership, is that they have needs outside of the four walls of IQ. So we want to accommodate that, and we want to be thoughtful about how we can provide holistic solutions for our customers. With Flexday, it's a bookable app. Our customers and our members are able to simply go onto the app and book space on an on-demand as needed outside of IQ. We call this a hub and spoke solution. So the hub would be IQ, with the downtown location, and the spoke would be these other locations which may be closer to home or certainly more convenient for some of the remote workers or the groups that are not coming into the office on the days where they're occupying space at IQ.